What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Stephan Hogan podcast. This is your host, Stephan Hogan, and today's going to be a little bit different. I usually don't look at the camera, but I am because I am doing an introduction of a special guest who's actually going to be interviewing me. So I've been interviewing people on the show now. I believe this is going to be the 18th episode, and my guest is an entrepreneur. He's a very smart man. He's an inspiration, and he just so happens to be my brother-in-law. His name's Stamer, and him and his wife and 2 kids are out here celebrating the 4th of July with us. So it's been an honor to have him at our house, and we're just going to have fun talking, and he's going to ask me some questions about me. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share, and I'm really hoping that this episode brings some value to you guys, because I really started this podcast to help, and we're going to get into that. I love to explore. I love to see beautiful things. I love national parks. I love the ocean. And I'm wearing a watch by a company called Venturian, and that's their motto, is exploring. It's called the Day Tripper, and it's made out of titanium. It has a sapphire crystal top, which is the strongest and best glass you can get on a watch, including all Swiss watches. That's what they use. So the watch is solar powered. So behind the face is an actual little solar panel, and it charges the battery in it. Once it's fully charged, will last 6 months without a charge. That's amazing, because I have a lot of watches in the automatic watch world. Usually, you won't get past like a Powermatic 80 of an 80-hour power reserve. So the fact that I can just pop something on my wrist without having to wind it and reset the time or wind it is really, really convenient. The customer support has been awesome. So make sure to go to venturian.co, and again, follow them on Instagram. Check out the Day Tripper and get the one in black like I have. Let me tell you a little story. In 1917, a company was founded called Korchmar. This company has been making leather goods for 107 years in the United States. United States sourced material leathers, full grain leather, and most people don't know what that means, but full grain leather is the best kind of leather that you can get. It means that it's actual solid leather off a hide. Amazing craftsmanship, amazing quality, and I just feel like things aren't made the way they used to be. You know, like my dad growing up, the toys were made out of metal. Now everything's made out of plastic. Well, Korchmar has not abandoned the legacy of making quality goods, and that's why I'm such a fan of them. And I would love for you to go check out their website, korchmar.com, KORCHMAR.com. And if you want to be like me, get the Espresso Lewis. And I'm sure there's a discount that they'll give you if you mention this podcast. And I even got a little tag, and they'll, what do you call it? When they put your name and stuff? You can get embossed initials or whatever you want on it. But anyway, go check them out. Quality over quantity all day long. I stand for quality, and I stand behind Korchmar. Please welcome my brother, Stamer.
Happy to be here. As always, it's cool to see your studio and the whole setup here.
Thanks for helping me get it set up.
Of course. Just can't rush perfection.
That's right.
You say it 1,000 times.
That's right.
So today we're kind of digging deep into who is Stephan Hogan, what is the story, how do we get to this point, What does it mean that we're here, why are we here, who are you? So for the people that maybe have been following you since the beginning, maybe walk through some of the baby steps of the origin of your path, where you grew up, maybe what you're up to, interests, desires, what led to music, what brought you to Nashville, so on. We'll start at the beginning.
Man, you're like a natural podcaster already, dude. This is your first podcast interview, right? Interviewing someone.
First interview ever, unless you consider the guys I take to coffee.
Well, you asked me a lot of questions, so I'll try to just start at the basics, okay? Give people a little background about me, because I think that, that's cool. Contextualizing my life a little bit for everybody could be helpful. But essentially, like many, I grew up in a musical household. And I had a dad that played guitar and sang, and my mom sang. In fact, my grandmother is she had her degree. She was classically trained in piano and singing, and I have a record of her singing with this symphony, like way back in the day. It's kind of cool, yeah. But a really artsy family on both sides. My grandfather was a painter. And then on my dad's side, there was a lot of creativity as well. And my dad's an artist. And so I grew up around it, you know. I grew up camping in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And those are my favorite memories of my childhood, is going camping. Like, we didn't have a lot of money, but you know. And as a kid, you don't know if you have money or you don't. But being able to go up into the woods, and, you know, dad's chopping lumber and you're helping with the little hatchet and you're just like hitting it into a random tree or something. And then at nighttime he'd pull out his guitar and he'd play like the songs he knew. And he knew what we call the cowboy chords. So for the musicians out there, they know what that means. But it's like G, C, E minor, D. Like first position, I can sing a bunch of songs with those chords, kind of a thing.
Okay, right on.
Yeah. So then you fast forward, and we can get into this more, but essentially I had made a decision at a point in my life where I was like, I'm going to do this music thing full time, go full steam ahead, and pursue it as a career.
So do you know specifically when that was?
Well, I could tell you this. I was like athletic. Me and you both share that. You played baseball for a lot of years. I played baseball and golf, but I was playing guitar the whole time. And I remember when I was in junior high, like we played in the talent show when I was in 8th grade. I played in the talent show. Actually, I played in 2nd grade for my class. I played in 4th grade for my class. And then in 5th grade, I played in the talent show.
Was that the John Denver?
Yeah, I played Country Roads in the talent show. I wanted to do Closing Time by Semisonic, but they wouldn't let me because it was too inappropriate. So whatever. But all that to say, I was, you know, playing at a real young age. But in junior high, I specifically remembered playing at the talent show and kind of making this mental shift of like, man, like I'm finding my identity in this. And my freshman year of high school, for some reason, this isn't a science class, but we had to do a career report. And mine, I chose the career was rock star. And I loved it because of the ambiguity.
Yeah.
Because they wanted.
Because it wasn't a real career.
Yeah, correct.
You're like, I could get away with anything.
Yeah, well, they wanted to know, like, so what's the salary? What's the wage? All that kind of stuff. They wanted details. They wanted me to talk to somebody that was in it. You know, they're expecting people to go like, doctor, dentist,
and then go
whatever.
Talk to someone, interview them, and like get feedback, and then that turns into the report.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't have that data because I knew, and I remember putting in they asked the like estimated salary. I could put like broke to multimillionaire, and I got an F. They failed me on that one.
That's bullcrap.
They failed.
I haven't even read the report, and I know it was killer.
Dude, but I was just like that sure as a freshman in high school that's what I was going to do. And so.
And a year later, I think you made a pretty big decision in that direction, if I'm not mistaken, in high school.
It wasn't a year later.
Or 2 years later.
Leaving high school? Yeah. I dropped out of so I'm a high school dropout. So, but it's not, let me elaborate on it. It's not like I decided one day, I'm just going to leave this place.
Yeah, there's obviously a story there, but I'll let you unpack that.
Yeah. First off, I did find the minutia of high school to be a waste of time.
As did I.
Yeah.
As what most people do.
Yeah, and I think just culturally, like, kids are getting real smart on the internet and learning things that we should be learning in school, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
But I never saw the value in learning what y was or x was or whatever the equation was in math. And I did pre-algebra all the way through. I ended up in junior college, but we'll go there. But I just never did good in math. I struggle with that. I found out later I'm dyslexic, so that could have been part of it. But I missed a lot of school on my freshman year and my sophomore year. So I started kind of at a deficit in terms of my high school career, or whatever you might call it.
From missing class?
From missing class, being behind on assignments. My parents had just got divorced going into my freshman year, and I was really struggling with some like hardcore mental health stuff at the time.
Yeah, and that's a huge factor that plays into the rest of that story, those following 3 years or whatever.
Exactly. So like come the end of junior year, I have 3 A's and 3 F's, and my A's were I had AP music, jazz band, and then intermediate guitar, which was the highest guitar class you could take. And then my F's were it was science, English, math.
Everything you need. So the A's were in everything that you succeeded at down the line, and the F's were in everything that you needed to pass.
Yeah. Like the F's were in the things I just didn't care about, you know? Now I, as a older, you know, individual, not like old, but as an older from high school.
20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, like now I value, like you saw, I bought a book from 1844 about grammar, and I'm learning what a consonant is.
Yeah.
Like I want to learn, I want to be educated, and I never learned the rules of writing. And that's the funny thing, is that I got into songwriting, but I liked the fact that there weren't real rules. I just kind of understood things, but I didn't feel like I was encumbered by the rules that were taught in school.
It was more suggestions based on what's worked in the past, but it wasn't pass or fail.
Yes.
Whereas school was pass or fail, you need to write this way, but you felt more free, like there was less of a cap on you of songwriting, because maybe there was some boundaries or some, you know, industry standards per se, but at the end of the day, it was up to you to walk that out and write how you really wanted to write, or how you felt led to write. Does that
Correct.
sound right?
100%, man. Yeah, there weren't really boundaries on it. And that's one of the things I love about art is we can't put art in a box. We can't put music in a box, or creativity. It's one of those things where I love the idea of a blank page and being able to write something and it being messy, and being able to scratch it out and rewrite it and spell the words wrong that I don't know how to spell, and not use punctuation, all of that. You know, it freed me up, the idea of songwriting. And I was terrible at it in high school. Some people are great at it. For me, I wasn't. I was someone that had to work really hard at it, and I was also insecure because in junior high, around that time that I had mentioned, I remember jamming with some buddies and I was singing, and they were like, no, we don't really want you to sing. And that really was a like confidence killer for me. But the interesting thing was, the day my dad picked me up from that jam session, the mom of the son whose house we were playing at came up to him, and she pulled him aside and was like, hey, your son has a really good voice. And I think my dad told me that, but I kind of brushed it off because you're so insecure. You know, when someone insults you in a roundabout way and you're trying to figure out who you are and all those things, and those formative years and the insecurity involved in that, man, it was rough. So I kind of threw singing to the wind, and I was like, I'm just going to focus on being a badass guitar player.
Okay. And so even though there was kind of an insult followed by a compliment on the back end, because of the insult came first, it kind of outweighed the compliment.
100%.
And it was probably someone, because it was a peer, it meant more than just their mom or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's like you weren't trying to prove yourself to their mom. As youth, you prove yourself to each other, that's a whole other rabbit hole. We should not do that either.
No.
But so then you kind of rejected that in the meantime, focused on being the best guitar player you could be. And at some point there was a shift again. Did you shift back to songwriting again just out of passion, or did you see a need for it in the market, or how did that come? Like, maybe explain how you revived that skill.
Yeah. So one of the things that really kept the gears going, gears oiled, was playing in church, because I started playing at church in 6th grade in the junior high worship band, and then I played until I got hired on at age 18, and then I worked in church doing music all the way up until not too long ago. So one of the things, I was singing as well, even though I was never like I'm going to be a vocalist. I was singing, and it was in a roundabout way, providing me the ability to sharpen my ability, which was cool, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But making the decision was your question, right? About
regarding correct
the guitar stuff,
and the singing.
Yeah, and the writing of songs. I remember being probably in my late teens. Well, I released a full 10-song CD when I was 18. So I had written enough. The whole thing was $1,000. It took 2 years. It was $100 a song. I'd go take a 40-minute drive to my buddy's house, and we'd go upstairs into their like attic, and I'd record and sing all the parts and all my harmonies and do everything in these songs I had written that I never ever went back and like asked myself, should I rewrite that lyric? Could that be better? It was the most pure music I've ever written because it was unadulterated by opinions. And there's a beauty.
It was the earliest form of your writing career.
Yeah, in which I would release.
The most authentic.
Yeah, because I was writing songs that I knew weren't good. They didn't like really hit the mark for me at the time. But I mean, but for me, like as a songwriter, I really felt like I need to write songs for this record that I'm working on. And I released this 10-song CD, and it was something I was really proud of. And I'm proud of it to this day. I go back and listen to it occasionally. And that was, 17 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So maybe explain why a record. I mean, you're 18, you said?
Yeah.
So, most people think back to when they're 18 and they probably have not very ambitious things on their mind or overly ambitious. And so something was in your mind to say, got to put a record together, got to put songs together. Why a record? Why write? Like, what was the driver that you even wanted to produce that? Yeah. Was there pain? Was there hurt? Was there a mission? Was it money? Was it fame? Like, were you just trying to prove people wrong because you had already dropped out of high school, right? Because this is a couple years after that.
Yeah. I don't know what in me directly drove me to that. I think that, again, going back to the purity of it, I would process life through writing songs. So it was a way for me to be able to process some of the things that I dealt with, such as love.
The divorce.
Yeah, the divorce. But, what came out of that divorce was my inability to attach in a relationship. So I found out through therapy that there's different attachment styles, and mine was called disorganized attachment, where I would get close, then I'd get freaked out, and I'd withdraw, and then I'd want to get close again. So there was always this back and forth. So if you listen to those first 10 songs I ever released, a lot of it was about like, I want to love this person. Like if I could pick my destiny, you'd be the one I choose, but I don't think you'll understand until you spend time in these shoes. And it's like me trying to express myself that I want to love and like be able to connect, but I can't because there's this thing in the way, because I freak out and I don't know why I'm freaking out, but I am, and it's frustrating. And so for me to be able to work that out in songs was, I think, a good, healthy outlet for me.
So at the time it was unknown. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. You've learned a lot, grown a lot, and sought out knowledge in those areas so you could speak to it in a better light. I'm sure you would not have explained at the time the way you're explaining it now, hence the writing.
Yeah.
Right. So would you say that was almost a therapy for you?
Yeah, definitely.
That was an outlet, a creative outlet, obviously.
Yeah.
From the hurt or from the confusion, maybe.
It was a creative outlet, and it was me trying to prove to people that I had value and that I had that I was worth something. Because I remember after playing, like, here's a good example, the 8th grade talent show. The girl, my buddies and I, we weren't like the popular kids, We liked playing music, and we'd hang out in the garage at my buddies and have like a garage band and play Blink-182 and Green Day. And that's what we did. And then once 8th grade came around and we played for the school, all of a sudden, like, girls kind of recognized me, and I was like, oh shoot, like, I'm being validated for being good at something. And now this one popular girl wants to talk to me on AOL Instant Messenger, you know? Whoa. And now I found out she likes me. And that was a big ego boost for me because I wasn't the kid that was the most popular. In elementary school, I was really popular and confident. Went to junior high, had a really hard time. Went to high school, had a really hard time. And I think that out of that, there's this part of me that wanted to prove that I had something valuable to offer.
And so the first kind of attachment to that was that direct correlation between, hey, this person likes me, and there's a direct connection to this thing I'm good at, which at the time was music. You felt like, I'm asking a question, did you feel like that was a direct connection to that, a direct result of that skill or the music or whatever?
100%. And all the accolades I got ever, it was playing at church.
It was always
singing
that.
At church.
It was always
music.
something. Yeah.
It was always music, man. It was always like, great voice, or you did a great job, or you played this great, or I love your song, or I bought your CD, or like I would go play shows around town and always getting compliments. And that was very like, oh, I'm actually good at something. Because deep inside of me was it just insecure person that wanted to be the popular kid, but wasn't.
Right. And that's a very relatable story. I mean, the good news and the light, the silver lining to that is that, number one, you're on this other side of it.
Yeah.
Number two, that's a common story that we hear a lot that can be spoken to, and you could help people along that path, especially youth. And so, I mean, every once in a while you run into someone who's far down the line and they're still battling things that were unresolved then. But I mean, particularly youth that are in the middle of that struggle, you could speak to that and say, look, man, I was even worse. You know what I mean? And this is how I work through it, kind of a thing. But I don't want to belabor the whole high school dropout portion.
I will say something about that, though. I remember going to the senior graduation that was the graduating class of 07.
That would have been your class.
And I still remember they all came, so I don't know who it was, but there was class cheers. Did you have those?
Yeah.
So ours were wild and crazy. Our spirits are revving. We are the class of 2007. I'll never forget that, dude. Until the day I die, I'll never forget that. But I remember going and watching my friends walk and get their, fake little diploma box that has nothing in it and all that, and watch it. But I felt like so empty at that time. And my mom was a teacher, a lifetime teacher, and I felt like I was letting her down, and there was all these conflicting emotions. And I remember vividly that graduation day where I went and I was like, you kind of are a failure. And that was another weird moment for me where I had to, later on I went to junior college and I got a couple associate's degrees. And that was really to prove to myself that I'm not a failure.
Yeah, those things that were easy to believe were lies, and in your mind, you wanted to just prove it on paper so you could move forward. Yeah. Like that was your way of bringing closure to that season of your life.
Yeah.
To say, you know what, I felt this then, but I'm going to prove to myself and anyone who cares that that's not me, and that's not the reason that I, didn't walk or whatever the case was.
Yeah.
But maybe for more detail, like what was the driver to drop out of school, to step out? The only reason I want to, like I said, I don't want to belabor, but the only reason I want to get into that more is because there's a stigma. It's such a cliche word, the dropout word, but there's a stigma that goes with it, which is why entrepreneurs and leaders kind of use it as a badge of honor, because it's like, look at me, look what I did, like against all odds, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the person who says, if I say, describe to me a dropout, they're not going to describe this, what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Like, I guarantee it, because we just know people. Like, this isn't something that you would imagine a dropout would put together. This is incredible, my opinion. But, like, So maybe connect those dots a little bit, because there's someone that maybe has that story or is saying, dude, this guy's a dropout, but look how we got to here, or he doesn't strike me as a dropout, right? So like, what caused the leave of absence? And then we'll go into more detail as to how we got to here. But
the simple answer was I didn't see the value in high school.
And your parents weren't convincing enough to say, but like you didn't respect them enough or look up to them enough.
Yeah, it wasn't a matter of respect. You know, my dad was very understanding of the reason that I was behind in school from the mental health stuff I dealt with and the divorce and all that. And my mom was as well. But long and short, it was like, I'm not going to put in the effort to go learn things that I think are a ridiculous waste of my time when I already know what I want to do with my life.
Right. And you had a level of awareness that was enough at that time to say, you know what, I don't know anything else, but I do know this. I don't need this right now. And I tell people the same thing regarding college. It's like, if you want to study something, go study it. Don't go learn a bunch of stuff that you don't know if you'll need. Like if high school was a more of an elective concept, I would be in the same boat as you. There was pressure that I just abided by to keep people off my back, so I stayed through high school. But as soon as I was out, I was off to the races. Yeah. So it's like we had a very similar mentality as far as we had an awareness around this. We were still in the world. We went to the grocery store. We went around. We hang with people. We interacted with businesses. And then we went to school during the week. And we knew enough to know none of these people are using what I'm learning here. Why am I learning this? So it's like you had a level of awareness that said, I see the world around me. It's got nothing to do with this. Not only that, but the thing that I know I want to do has nothing to do with this.
Correct.
So you felt like, you know what? I'm convicted in this. I'm going to go after it. And sounds like what you're saying is your parents knew you well enough to trust you. Yeah. And say, you know what? If this is really the most important thing, do what you got to do. Get yourself healthy. That kind of.
Yeah,
100%.
And I mean, my dad saw the potential in me. He was my biggest fan and has been. And he bought me a little recording device, Tascam US-122 at Guitar Center. And I was just, in that high school era. And I remember learning how to record myself in my room and all that stuff. And I'd burn CDs, bring them downstairs, play them for my dad. And then he'd be like, son, that's good, but, and he'd critique it. And I'd go back upstairs and I'd work on it. So he always was he saw the potential in me musically. And I think that was one of the things where he supported my decision, because he himself was a high school dropout and then went and got 2 bachelor's degrees. And
that was going to be my next question. I was curious what his background is.
Yeah,
because that's the way you explain that sounds very receptive to that story, and that just isn't common. Yeah. Most of the time, parents are driving down your throat to graduate.
My dad was the most non-judgmental, chill dude. In terms of understanding me, and I think that comes from his own childhood. And he was 45 when I was born, so I'm the youngest, and so he was well into his 60s, something like that.
Yeah, 60s, late 50s,
or no, late 50s. When I was going through that, and he was a well-established man that probably saw things a little bit more globally, and so he understood. He's like, I get it. I know what high school does, what it can and cannot do for you, and my son wants to go pursue this thing, so I'm going to support him. And I think that that was the right move on his part, because I was stubborn. I was going to do it no matter what.
So. Okay, so then it didn't matter. So I'm wrong. So it didn't even matter. Maybe it helped that he was open-minded, but it didn't matter what anyone thought. You were going to do that.
Yeah, I was convinced.
I think that's the best way to go. If you're going to make it extreme, like we were talking about a pivot, go 100%. I think we could both agree on that. Yeah. So I have a ton of respect for that, a ton of admiration for that.
Yeah, it really comes down to the burn the boats, storm the island mentality.
Totally. No back door.
Yeah. And so I really had that mentality. It was, I got no plan B. Music's the thing. I'm not going to get some job and pay into retirement. It's on me to be successful, and it's on me to fail.
Totally. And so that evolved. This passion / work / skill set evolved over the next, I mean, all the way until now, really. But it turned into many different things along the way, it sounds like. If you want to unpack what the story of the music line went, and then moving to Nashville 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was interesting. As I moved out of my teen years into my 20s, I got a booking agent in California, and I was putting out music, and I was going and I was playing with a band of my friends, and we were getting booked at county fairs or local venues, and we had to play a lot of covers, and I could play some originals. And we'd play down in San Diego at this place called Moonshine Flats, which was like a bigger venue, and that was always really cool to play there. So I got to really get out and outside of the church world, practice performing, because it's very different leading worship than it is performing for people drinking alcohol that want to party. You know what I'm saying?
You were living a double life, man. Who are you?
And
Go on.
So like, it actually helped me lead in worship because I was more relaxed and confident on stage and engaging with people. Because that's one of the things that you had to learn. So I really put in my reps, man. Like, I was playing guitar. I had taken guitar lessons. You know, I did the math one time, and I'm well over 10,000 hours on the guitar. And I was like, all right, I got to get out there and just like grind the pavement. And I had merch, and I was selling merch, and I was writing a lot of songs that to me were they sounded like what was on the radio, which is what I thought you were supposed to do as a songwriter. And I started coming to Nashville, and I did that for probably 5 or 6 years before we moved here. So all in all, about 11 years. So when I first started kind of, I would say, dating your sister, my wife, Haley, I was already pretty set on Nashville. And I was having meetings with publishers that I would meet through these little pitches. And each time I did it, every single person would leave their contact information. And then at the end, the guy that ran the thing, the little pitch thing, he was like, nobody ever does that. And so I started to do them more and more when I was here. And then I could do them over Zoom. And then I would get critical feedback. And again, I would get all the contact information. And one day, Haley sat in on one, and she was like, we need to move to Nashville. And all the publishers I was meeting with kept saying, like, you need to be in town. And one of the guys that's a mentor and a friend of me, his name's Eddie Tidwell. He's he was the VP of Muy Bueno, which is George Strait's publishing company with Irv Woolsey. Irv passed not too long ago, but Eddie's still over there. The publishing company's now Wimberley, but he has believed in me since I was in my, like some of my first trips here. And I remember meeting with him on Music Row, and I was like, man, do I need to move to Nashville? And he was like, these are his words in his Southern way. He said, I don't tell anybody to move to Nashville, but I think you might, shoulda, or might oughta move to Nashville. It was like the way he said it. He said, I think you might oughta move to Nashville. And it was really reassuring to me to have someone that's been in the business and been in publishing for that long at such a high level give me that validation that it kind of really set in motion for me the vehicle in which it was going to take to get myself here. And what's interesting is at that very time, I entered this guitar competition. And it was random, but I saw it on Facebook one day in the little 2-bedroom apartment me and my buddy Jason were renting. And it was like Guitar Center was putting on this thing. It was On Stage with Vince Gill. And I clicked on it and I watched what it was, and it showed the song that you were supposed to play guitar over, and then enter a video, upload it, and then Vince Gill was going to pick his top 5 favorite guitar players. And I listened to this. I was like, I'm only going to do this if I like the song. And I didn't really think much about it. And I remember sitting there and I clicked on it, and it immediately reminded me of the song Rhiannon by Fleetwood Mac. And my top 2 bands of all times would be the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac. Well, maybe them and Crosby, Stills and Nash. It's a hard top 3, but I was like, man, this song speaks to me. And I remember writing a guitar part for it, or actually improvising a guitar part for it, doing a couple takes, having a friend video it, and I entered it into this competition, not thinking too much about it. And then I don't know what happened, but I got a call one day from Guitar Center, and they had some questions for me. And it wasn't like, hey, you're one of the finalists. It was just like, hey, this is so-and-so with Guitar Center. I need some information. I was just curious. We saw your submission, blah, 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 blah. Very non-telling, but also kind of planted a seed to me, which was like, you might be a finalist. Well, when they released the finalists, turns out I was one of them. And there was 6,000 entrants, and of those 6,000 guitar players across the United States, I was one of the 5. So that in and of itself was very validating for me. It was like, you know what? Your ears tell you that you're pretty good. Vince Gill thinks you're pretty good, so that's good enough for me.
That's a pretty big nudge, I would say.
So that was a really cool experience. And right before we moved to Nashville, we came out here, and I ended up doing a show with Vince and his band where they backed me up doing my original music. And that night was amazing. I met his manager, Larry Fitzgerald, who's now retired. But Fitzgerald Hartley was one of the bigger management companies in the business, had been around for a long time. And Larry Fitzgerald took me and Haley to dinner one night at a spot in Green Hills. And it was just really cool kind of being taken under the wing of that Vince Gill camp, as publicist Aaron. And so that all happened. And we got to play. And I remember Vince Gill handed me a check from that night we played there. And I made $800. And right I was like, what? Yeah. Like, I just got handed a check for $800 playing my own music.
With Vince Gill.
With Vince Gill. Like, this is kind of crazy. And so we moved right after that. And it was just a lot of affirmation, Like, so many things fell into place in that moment. And I really felt like, all right, this is going to happen. I met his manager. He's on my side. Like, the Vince Gill thing's cool. I know the team. Like, what could happen next?
So the move brought you guys that was the last big step to be like, okay, I'm serious, burn the ships, playing with the big boys kind of a thing. So I can only assume that lit a fire under you to do whatever you set out to do here.
Yes, it did. But, and we don't need to go into it, but the COVID thing hit, and that really jacked everything up for entertainment,
Yeah,
for playing out and all of that stuff, man. So I was doing co-writes during that time with friends.
Was that your pivot, or was that what you were supposed to do? Because of COVID.
Co-writing?
Yeah.
No, man. I was just doing it because I wasn't concerned about getting sick or whatever. I just didn't really worry about it. That's just me and my personal thing. And some of the songwriters that I knew weren't tripping about it either. So someone I know from Big Yellow Dog, which is a publishing company in town, introduced me to some writers, and they just started coming over to my apartment, and we would write songs together. And that was kind of the introduction to me really starting to co-write and then get feedback from publishers on a whole nother level. So I was writing with Nashville songwriters, not hit writers, not people with publishing deals or anything, but kind of people that were where I was, newer to town maybe. And, the publishing company saw promise in what I was doing. And they're like, all right, I'm going to connect you. Because it's a very relational business.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, just from what I've heard, but also being in close proximity to you, I would imagine it's super heavy relationally, almost entirely, would you say?
No, I mean, relationally, yes, but also you have to have a level of talent.
But how many people have that skill set? Would you define that as like a needle and haystack skill set? Or is there a ton of people that could do what you do, but the people that get to the top are the people that know people?
I would say that I have a lot to say about the music business. And this is one of the reasons I started this podcast, was because if I could go back and talk to the younger me that was going to move here, even the 11 or 12 year ago me, I would be able to inform him of a lot of things that pretty much the majority of people moving to town to pursue a career in music don't know. You come here with blind optimism. And once you start having sit downs and meetings and finding out what record deals look like and publishing deals and the amount of money that is being made or not made and how people get their songs on radio and what that looks like and how it's really paid for. I mean, money really runs what you hear is paid to be on the radio.
Not talent based, which is what the optimism, that's where that comes in.
Yeah, I mean, so you would like to think it's talent. And there's a lot of talented people that you'll never hear. And there's a lot of people that we might say have less quote unquote talent that are going to have number one songs.
Because they had financial backing.
Yeah, they have financial backing, or maybe. So here's like kind of a breakdown of how things work if you'd like me to give you one.
Yeah, this is probably a good transition into kind of the heart of the podcast and kind of unpacking some of these, black magic mysteries of the music business. So maybe unpack an example.
Yeah. One of the questions I was getting a lot was just DMs about different things, right? And my wife Haley and I sat down, and one day I made a video just talking about publishing deals and draws. And this is a great example. Draw is basically a salary that you get. It's a amount of money that they pay you for a year to write songs, a certain amount of songs.
A one-time draw?
So the draw is paid like a paycheck.
Okay.
But essentially they're paying, it's recoupable. So it's like a loan. So it's like we're loaning you, like we'll just make you the songwriter. Okay. So the draws, I knew someone with a publishing deal that got a $10,000 a year draw. And then for a first time draw, generally it's between $20,000 and $30,000 a year. So I learned that and I was like, well, you can't live off of that.
No, yeah, what's that?
And so like that was like really eye-opening, just that in and of itself. And you're hoping that out of that you're going to be writing songs and you're going to get what are called cuts, which is when other people record your music. But now in the music business, artists don't want to take outside songs, and an outside song is written by somebody else other than having the artist name on the song itself. So let's say that Cole Stamer is a artist and he is looking to cut a record and he has songs being pitched to him, but he also has songs that he wrote on. They're going to usually go with the songs that you wrote on because they're going to make more money in royalties off of the song that you wrote on because you have ownership.
Because my name's tied to it, and they make money off of my name.
Yeah, they're going to make money off of either publishing or whatever your deal is.
So the artist isn't the one making these calls. Let's make that clear.
Well, the artist,
is it who's backing them, like the publisher? Or whatever?
The artist can negotiate if they have clout, but clout is earned through cuts and hits.
So if you're early, you're probably at the whim.
Yeah.
Of the team.
Yeah. So like, let's say I signed a first time publishing deal for $25,000. Well, all right, cool. Now I get to write with a bunch of like cool songwriters that are probably also signed, probably hit songwriters, and they're going to make me better. And there's a good possibility that like C-list signed artists are going to start cutting my songs and putting them out. But it doesn't guarantee that anything's going to happen with that. because there's so many people that are in this town to write songs, and there's so many people that are in this town to be artists, but they're not necessarily going to have success even if they get a record deal. And so back to the publishing deal thing, it was just one of those things where I said, basically, publishing companies are really only signing artists. They're looking to groom talent, and they're really collaborating with the majors, and it's kind of the minor leagues for fostering the next artist to get record deals. So that's kind of where their focus is on. So just being a writer, that idea in and of itself is very, very hard. I mean, I can't quantify it, but it would be so difficult just to get a job as a songwriter these days in 2024. And then you look at, okay, let's say I got signed to be developed. So let's say you were on TikTok, and you had some song that went viral on TikTok, and a publishing company signs you to a publishing deal, and they have you writing with a bunch of great songwriters. You're bound to have great songs, and your name's going to be on them, even if you're just sitting in the room drinking a coffee. Like in Nashville, if you're in the room, you're going to get credit. That's just how it works. It's kind of a fair system in a way because it keeps things simple, but that's just the way it is. And then that publishing company is going to groom you, and then they're going to take you so record labels are in the acquisition business, but they don't want to buy startups. They want to buy businesses that are generating revenue, like ready to go turnkey businesses. Right. And so if you think about it that way, when the artist comes to the label, they need to have everything ready to go, because the label doesn't look to develop artists like they used to. So the publishing company does the development. Back in the old days, record labels, they'd develop artists. They'd say, hey, your songs aren't there yet. Or even with the Eagles, my favorite band, like, hey, I believe it was Geffen Records. David Geffen was like, hey, you guys, it sounds good, but you need to get better at songwriting. And he sent him off into like some spot in the United States, and they just wrote and worked on writing better songs. And then they came back and cut their first record, and it had great songs on it. But it was because they were given the ability to hone their craft while being funded. And that just doesn't happen. And that's all because of streaming. So streaming's really knocked out the ability for artists to make money in the sales of music, unless you're selling vinyl, which is a bit of a resurgence, but still not enough to substantially move the needle. So all the record deals now are 360 deals. So let's say you were that publishing person, you got paid a draw, then you had to, so the first 25 grand you make is going right back to pay the draw before you make a dime. So they're getting that first 25 grand. And then let's say you have a record deal. Well, that's a big loan, and you're going to have a 360 deal. So they're going to generate revenue off of everything that you generate revenue off of. So in the old days, it was the artist gets to keep their ticket sales and merchandise. Doesn't happen anymore. Now ticket sales and merchandise is where the money is at versus the music.
So they have a 360 deal. They don't even, they're getting a cut on ticket sales, merchandise, and everything you can 100%. Imagine.
Anything and everything. Brand deals. I mean, and the contracts are pretty gnarly. And oftentimes it'll take a year to negotiate a contract for an artist before they really come to terms with how they're going to do it. And I have a friend, Hannah Dasher, who's on the podcast, and she was with Sony and signed and was killing it. And then they just upped and dropped her. And she's doing great independently. And she's out there pounding the pavement and digging fans out of the clubs. She stays at every show, after every show, and takes pictures and signs whatever for everybody at the entire show.
Wow.
And she is someone like that kind of human being is rare, because it just doesn't work that way anymore.
Is that like a rebel with a cause mentality? Is she trying to undermine the system and say, you know what, if you're not going to give me a label, if you're not going to give me the contract or the terms that I want, I'm just going to go pound the pavement, build a following. They're going to love me, and there's nothing you can do about it. Is that her mentality?
I think what the mentality is truly is, do you know who Cody Johnson is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Cody killed it in Texas forever. He was offered record deals by Warner multiple times, and finally he signed with Warner, and I think it was last year or the year before. It was a year before. I think it would have been in 2022 is when he signed with Warner. But they literally said, and it says it in articles if you read about it, they came to him and they were like, we'll give you whatever you want. So he had so much power to negotiate.
So you can go you can go the other way if you have the clout, if you have the following, because then it's like the label at that point knows we're at the whim of this person. They're too good. They're too big. They know their value. Yeah. The masses know their value. So you can't.
And in return for Cody, he could get his songs to country radio, which is the things that the label can do, which is harder to do when you're a Texas country artist, even though you can sell out the Texas, whatever it's called, stadium, arena, rodeo. People always get mad at me because I say it wrong. But he sold it out. And it's like a 60,000 person or crazy thing.
Oh, wow.
As an independent artist.
That's
the
incredible.
dude's making 7 figures a year without a record deal. You know, it's like I don't need a record deal at that point until they come to me and they say, I'm going to absolutely change your life.
Yeah, especially if you don't want someone to have their thumb on you. If you can make do, I mean, ultimately, isn't that what most people would take if they had the option for Cody's deal to have the following and not need the label and do it independently, or have the label and whatever? Like, wouldn't they choose to do the independent way? It's just harder. Wouldn't that be ideal?
You would think it's just harder. I mean, I think that you're going to make more money as a artist that is out there pounding the pavement, getting gigs and deals and owning your songs and being able to release what you want when you want and getting all your merchandise and all that, you know. You're going to make more money that way than you would probably with a lot of record deals. But the record deal, if you do good, then the next time around, like there's this advance, right? And then you go on tour, it kind of pays back the advance, and the crew, you kind of break even. I was told a story at Luke Combs Publishing Company where Luke came in, he's like, guys, just made my first $1 million. And they were like, oh, dude, that's awesome. And then he was like, yeah, and I owed 990 something. It was basically like he was left with like 10 grand. It was like $900,990 or something, or like something ridiculous. Where
it was an absurd ratio.
I made the money and all the money went away. And then, but you look at like 2 or 3, 2 or 4, that's when the money starts rolling in, and you see guys like Luke starting to be able to buy the house and do the things.
Yeah, so that's the next question for the people who are like, what the hell? So what do you do, right? What you're saying is it's the initial payback that's really what Luke Combs had to deal with. So after that, is it a really good deal?
Well, not necessarily a good deal. It all just depends, and I don't know because every contract's different.
Yeah,
I don't know what the terms of his contract were, but you just look at him, and he was having such success on country radio. Everybody loved him. He was blowing up organically. You know, he was just a great choice of a person to sign and put out there, and I think he was so different than everything going on at the time that people really gravitated towards him, and he has such a great voice, and his songs were great, and his songwriting was great. And a story about Luke, when he came to town, he went and he met at BMI and played him his songs. He talks about this on a episode of the Bobby Bones podcast, and they told him, yeah, you're going to need to keep working on these songs. They're not good enough, and you're not going to be able to be an artist. And so it turns out his first 2 or 3 number ones were songs that he played that person at BMI.
No way.
Yeah.
So how long before those were number ones was that meeting with BMI?
I would imagine, I don't remember the time frame, but it was like a little while, you know, like he was in Nashville playing and doing writers rounds and playing down at Tin Roof on Demumbrian, and so he was like doing his thing. And I think it's not TikTok, but it was like one of the streaming services he started doing really good on because he was singing and play guitar with his buddies. Yeah. And like he started to really pick up steam online. I think that probably helped him get his deal. But then after that, the rest is history, and now he's just really killing it.
Totally.
So it's just interesting. Or Morgan Wallen's killing it. The more you take Morgan away from them people, the more that they are going to want him. I saw him at Nissan Stadium, and it was sold out 3 nights in a row, and it's just like, wow. Like, and I got to tell you, like, I don't listen to country radio, and I went and saw him, and I was like, man, I like the stuff that Morgan Wallen does. Like, it kind of made me a fan seeing him live.
Yeah, and that's an organic draw, right? When you sell out stadium 3 nights in a row, like, that says something. That's not like...
Yeah, no label can make that happen.
Exactly. It's not just like, oh, what a great promoter. It's like they love Morgan.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to sell out that stadium 3 nights in a row if he's not a hit. Like, you just can't stop it at some point. The wave's too strong, sort of thing.
100%, man. And so, like, there's so much, and I could go on about it for days, but just stuff that I've learned from the years I've been here and having meetings and meeting people and then forming relationships and then starting the podcast and then sitting down across from people that are at the top of their game in the industry and just talking to them both on and off camera and learning really what it looks like, peeling back the curtain. And that is something that, again, that younger me would have thrived off of being told the truth.
So just because obviously we can get into every single aspect of that, and that kind of defeats the purpose of the podcast. From a macro level, the point of the podcast is to break those things apart one episode at a time.
100%.
But in maybe just to wrap a bow on it, what is that message that you would tell to that person, or even your younger self? The guy that's getting after it, loves music, wants to write, wants to do everything, you name it, wants to come out here to Nashville. What's your advice to that person? I mean, it sounds like that's the bigger picture, the overarching theme of like, hey, I done a bunch of crap that you may not have to do, right? So like maybe in a simplistic answer, like what would that be to that person?
Yeah. So that's a great question, man. And the person that gave me the best view of that answer is not even me, but it was John Deloney, which is an episode you listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you listening, John had the weekend that our episode dropped on a Monday. He was the number 3 podcast in the entire United States, number 1 in health and fitness, and number 3 in the U.S. And he has an incredible platform. He's a really smart dude, 2 PhDs, went to Harvard, and just kind of coaches people and has input. And I interviewed him, and we talked about a lot of mental health stuff, but we talked about the music business. And he said, one of the things we're really bad at as a culture is grief. He said those homes in Brentwood, which is a nice area in Nashville, those homes here in Brentwood were built with songwriter money. You can't get a house in Brentwood, it's so hard to say for me, Brentwood, with songwriter money anymore. You're going to have to get a second job. Like, there's a level of grief to realize, like, wow, my dream was to come here and write songs and be able to have a really successful career and be able to support a family and buy a house and do all the things. And now I have to realize, like, wow, I can't do that anymore. And the amount of people that do have the ability to do that is a very small amount. I'm pretty sure there's more professional, like, signed athletes in the NFL than there are songwriters. Like, I heard something like that recently, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. And of those songwriters, the majority of them are not getting singles, and that's really what pays. It's a single, which is a song on the radio that can go number 1.
Gotcha.
And so I would say, hey, if you're going to pursue music, do it, but you need to have I would develop the skills of an entrepreneur. I would learn to understand money. I would listen to podcasts. I would read books. I would read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I would understand assets and liabilities. My buddy Luke DeJanes, I was telling you about him earlier. He plays for Walker Hayes, and he was a college professor for music, and he told all his students, he said, lower your living expenses as much as possible. If you're going to do this for a career, you need to, like, don't get the newest iPhone. Don't have a car payment. You need to be as freed up as you can possibly be financially to be able to do what you want to do. And he said, and John, back to John in the podcast, he said the weight of the financial responsibility on your guitar case when you go to write a song is going to be so overwhelming that it is going to really prohibit the creative process, because you're going to be thinking, I have to write a hit song or else I'm going to get dropped from this publishing deal, or I have to write a hit song or else I'm not going to be able to pay for the payment on my F-150 or for my iPhone installments or whatever it may be that you tie. And I learned this the hard way. Those things we tie around our necks or our ankles that are financial burdens that at the time are like great ideas until you realize they aren't. And so my advice is really just that. Go for it if you want to go for it, but understand that the money's not like it was. If you want to be a player or a sideman, you could get dropped from that gig anytime. There's no guarantees, and they're not going to pay great. I had buddies out on the road with artists with number one songs getting paid $250 a night for playing, and this is in like a 3-piece band. And they're on tour opening in arenas. And you know that if that friend of mine leaves that tour, they're going to have a replacement in a second. Because how many people are there that are in Nashville that are 20 that are great musicians that are ready to fill that spot, that are like, shoot, I'll go on tour for $250.
Oh, yeah. I mean, half of them probably just want to do it just for the cred, just for the reputation.
Well,
and
yeah.
I got this experience. I got to be able to do this, and now it's like part of the resume.
The network, yeah, the resume. And that's kind of, but still so that side's really hard. The artist side's hard. And I mean, it's really just a lot more difficult than you would think it would be. So even for someone like me who has had some opportunities, one of which was like, hey, we want to sign you to a publishing deal. We want you to get a manager. Got a manager, went through the whole process. Got a manager, went through the whole process. And then the publishing company ended up saying, no, we can't do it right now. And so stuff like that's been really difficult. So now I kind of focus on life as like, yeah, the music stuff's there and everything, but you have to figure out a way to pay the bills that's not just music. And that's not an opinion. That's a fact. That's not just me like tooting my horn, acting like I'm a know-it-all. You come to town and you learn and you talk to some of the people that I've talked to. Topher Brown, who's on the podcast, he's had some really big songs. He wrote Night Shift, the John Party song. It went platinum 3 times. Or no, I believe it was Night Shift. Yeah, it was Night Shift. And he wrote a Little Big Town song that went platinum like 2 or 3 times. And he was saying, like, I wrote 300 or 400 songs before I got that John Party cut. And the majority of the money he was making was off a sync. And you're not making a lot, you're not getting rich. And those were some tight years,
So are you advising the people that want to make a transition or make a bold move or whatever? It sounds like you're saying, hey, get the money thing in order first. Let this be the creative outlet that it should be.
Yeah. How can you support yourself financially without the weight of the music having to be it? That's kind of a great question that I think is open-ended.
You could even argue that it won't produce if it has to.
Yeah.
Because the nature of it goes against the very nature of the act,
100%.
Which is inspiration, creativity, open-minded thinking, everything that we need art and artists for in society. it crumbles under the need to produce.
100%.
You could argue it's ineffective.
Yeah.
If it has to.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. And I would say that the best art is the art that is not coming from a place of, I need to put food on the table. Like you just said, Rick Rubin's a big inspiration to me. And he says the audience doesn't know what they want. He says, when you're an artist, you need to focus on the audience last. And when you do that, you're going to focus on the art first, and that's going to create the best art.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and he's a genius, man. He started Def Jam Records. He's maybe arguably one of the top producers of all time. He lives in Malibu, and he's just so smart. He meditates every day in saunas and walks on the beach with his shirt off and gets sunshine, and he's got wild frizzy hair. And he's came out with an awesome book, and he's just so smart, man. And he just sits there and listens and tells people what he feels. And that's like, it's a very ambiguous job that he has as a producer, but it's based off of feeling. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool to learn
art.
about him. Yeah, which is art. Or you go into the fine arts and painting and stuff like that. It's like so much more almost like artistic in a way than the music business, because it's very much a formula. Music's very formulaic. If you get into pop music, and if you want to just make music because you love it, do it. But you don't need to come to Nashville. You know?
If you just want to produce and express yourself through that. And that leads into a whole nother rabbit hole that we're not going to get into regarding media and social media and all these platforms, where if someone just wanted to self-promote, organic content and all that, I mean, you could genuinely do that and just let that lead you, right? Yeah. Like if you just want to make music, you have more opportunities at your fingertips. At a low level, it's crazy. You have 10 times what you ever had. But on a high level, it's like it's worse because of all the low level access.
Yeah, my buddy living in Columbia, South Carolina is making more money playing covers than most musicians in Nashville are making with record deals.
Which is crazy to think. I mean, if you were to talk to some of these guys 30 years ago or 40 years ago, they wouldn't even believe you. Yeah. But it's like they couldn't imagine what the culture is today.
They couldn't, man. And I asked Vince Gill, the first podcast we released, I say, what's your advice to musicians like this next generation? He said, I don't have any.
Because he doesn't know what the generational...
I said, what, like, expound upon that. And he's like, I don't have any. My way is no more. He said,
that's huge.
He said, my way is no more. I have no... all they care about now is your social media. That's the first thing they ask you. How many followers do you have on social media?
Yeah, what's your following?
And then he says in the interview, he says, what about the songs? Like, can they sing? What about the music? Where does that part come in? So it's really interesting because, I mean, at the end of the day, the music business is about money, and business is about generating revenue. Yeah. And it's really how fast can we generate revenue? And what does that look like? And that's what the music business is going to do, because they're a business. And you can't blame them for it. It's not like I'm going to sit here and be mad. And I'm not talking down on the music business. I'm just saying, like, this is kind of some of the realities. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, if you have the dream and you want to do it, come and do it and go for it. But also, if your parents are going to support you, then great. But if you don't have that luxury, you're going to want to figure out everything you have to know about business and money, because it's a business. And a lot of artists don't think about business.
They think about music, but there's no music business without business.
And you have to, man. And some of the smartest people in the world are the ones that are creatives, but also have the business side locked. Because you have to make money at the end of the day. You got to be able to make money some way. Mm. And that's an important part of life, just to be able to live. That's the bottom line. So I started this podcast because of stuff like that. And then I moved into thinking broader, because my story is so much more than just music. And it's mental health struggles and all kinds of things. And I've really been kind of focusing on talking to people that are musicians and are in music, and some people I really look up to that are huge names. They're going to be on the podcast soon, and they're kind of in the music vein too. But I'm also looking at like talking to people that are experts in their field, like mental health and wellness, and we all need to be well. Like you're reading a book by Jocko right now, and he talks about, and I think this is so true, like if you take care of your body, if you go to a business meeting and you meet someone and they're in shape, that says a lot about someone just right off the bat. It says they're disciplined, for one. They can be persistent. They know how to take care of themselves, like they respect their body and their appearance. I mean, it says a whole lot of things without saying anything at all. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely, which is a huge driver recently of my pursuit of physical health and fitness, which is how do I present myself? How is that perceived to the world around me? And does that perception align with my perception of myself and how I want to be perceived? There's nothing wrong with saying what I do now makes me look like a loser. I don't want to be a loser. I'm going to change. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what I did. I looked at myself and I said, I hate this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's that simple, and we don't have to overthink it. We could just realize, look, this has a huge impact on my relationships and how I connect with people and how they perceive me. You know, dress how you want to be addressed. Like how you carry yourself, your physical fitness is part of dress. Like,
oh, it is.
The
man.
Best look
That's
is
cool.
a physically fit look. So it's like if you want to look good in clothes, like I think it was Tristan. We're getting on a tangent, but Tristan Tate was talking about physical fitness, and he's talking about style, and he goes, Prince Charles, the person who designs, my suits or whatever, makes my suits, does Prince Charles suits as well. He's like, who looks better in their suits? He's like, me. He goes, I take care of my body. I'm fit. I'm built. All this stuff Prince Charles doesn't do. Crap. He looks like a slob in that suit. The same guy designed both suits. He's like, but I look like a killer because of my body, because mentally I'm an animal. You know what I mean? Like, they're funny and they're extreme. But there's something to be said about that. Absolutely. We got off topic. We were talking about...
No, I like that, man.
We were talking about something totally different.
The physical fitness side of things, because I really want to get into that.
Oh, you're talking about wellness. You're talking about
I really want
to
get into that, man, because that's not something that we really think about. But to be able to operate at your highest level and your highest potential, what does that look like,
Yeah, what would that do for you? In the book, Jocko talks about, look, this is like a secret key that unlocks different levels of your ability, of your potential, like the chemicals and the endorphins and the hormones and growth hormone and testosterone and, the things that should come naturally, that develop you naturally to your fullest potential. Those things are released and unlocked doing something like, working out, getting in shape. That's the stuff we're not taught. I mean, how crazy would that be if they taught us that when we were 14? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the kids that want to take it seriously would just crush it because they're given the right information.
Yeah.
So now we're coming to the table like, dude, we've been lied to. Someone get in here. John Deloney gets in here to tell us about, mental health or whatever, because it's like we're clueless. Yeah. We're squirming and we're dealing with all this past trauma. No one knows what's going on, and no one knows how to process conflict or grief like he was talking about. So it's like that kind of ties into maybe my last question, which is, maybe in a brief summary, give a little piece of, your mind and your heart as far as this podcast and your mission. I don't know if there's a single vein of topic that you have a goal to explore, or if, like you said, it's more all-encompassing, like, hey, I have a background in music, so we're going to get into that, but I also have future dreams of health, of wellness, is there one thing? Is it a bunch of things? What can people expect from tuning into you every Monday?
Yeah. I think a couple things. One, just so you know me, on the music side, my background was like musician, gone Nashville, gone seeing the realities of the music business, gone a married man, gone. I don't think that this is the route that I want to go, because I want to be able to support my family. I don't want to be pinching pennies, but I can also use the knowledge I have to help people. Like, I don't think that the publishing deal or the record deal is for me, but I think it's for some people. But for where I'm at in life, and I have a son, and he's going to be 1.5 soon, and life changes as you get older, and my perception on life and wanting to help people and kind of give back and tell people what I wish I was told is really a driver. I think on the mental health side and the wellness side, being open about it and saying, hey, like, and I think you see a lot of this online now, but when you go to a doctor, they're kind of slapping Band-Aids on you a lot of the time.
100%.
They're not really getting to the problem.
It's really bad, and we're not going to get into that either because I have my own stories I can tell. But
I want to watch what I say because I would like to be able to post this without it getting censored by one of the wherever it's on a platform. But there are certain, ways that you can treat problems and get rid of them and like kill them at the root versus
symptoms. You could treat problems, you could treat symptoms.
Yes.
The industry tends to treat symptoms only.
Correct. And so I want to get into that, and I want to talk about that. And I myself have been to the Amen Clinic. Dr. Daniel Amen, he's a baller, man. He's Miley Cyrus's psychiatrist, Justin Bieber's psychiatrist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that's a big part of my story, man. And like me going to functional medicine doctor, like he's an MD, but he's a IFM certified Institute of Functional Medicine. Oh. And so learning things about my health and just sharing those stories, and then talking music and talking shop and that kind of thing, and just talking to interesting people. Some of my favorite podcasts are like Lewis Howes and Ed Milet and Jay Shetty. Yeah. And they have a variety of guests on, and not every episode's going to be for everybody. But at the end of the day, for me, it's like, what can I do that is going to help somebody out? Like maybe there's one thing that's said in one little episode that changes somebody's life. Just like when I interviewed John Deloney, and he said the first thing you should do when you get home is not kiss your kid, it's kiss your wife. Mm-hmm. And me and you both talked about that today.
Yeah, we both started. I don't know when you started doing that, but that was a recent thing for me that I started implementing because of subconscious habits. Now I got to override that thing and say, well, no, actually, I'm going to be intentional about this for the greater impact.
And I learned that from that one episode, man. And if that's all I got from that conversation, if it helped me, did you learn it from that conversation, or did you hear it before and it reinforced it for you?
It reinforced on that particular one. It reinforced it. But there was like 5 other things from that podcast that I didn't know that I learned. That's a perfect example of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, even if it was just one of those things, it's like, that's why we're here, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And rapid round about me, just as we end, because I think we got into the music stuff real fast, and I could talk about it forever and go on tangents. Yeah. But born and raised in California, moved here. What do I like? I love the beach, love the ocean,
Ooh.
Love spending time with my family. I love coffee. I love making coffee for my friends that come over. And I got one right here. I got a iced vanilla latte.
So, what is that, ASMR? Stop, no. It's just a little something. Just a little something. Just a little plugs.
What's this is ASMR? No, man, I'm just like nursing this thing. But I just, I'm kind of an old soul. I like vinyl records. I love people, man. And I've been asked before, and I've thought about this because I have to be really honest with myself. Because people will be like, so would you rather have a successful podcast or be a successful musician? Like, let's say they paid the same. And honestly, where I'm at in life, I enjoy learning and talking And my reason behind that is you can get on a stage and you can connect with people and you can sing songs, and that's great. And music is a huge fabric of culture. But for me, I have something to offer, and I'm not Jordan Peterson, I'm not 60, but I've experienced a lot, and I know a good amount to be able to share and to be able to sit down with really smart people that are a lot smarter than me and pull stuff out of them. And a friend of mine's been like, hey man, you should try to be more dynamic in how you talk and loud and like get quiet and pause. And I think about things like that, but really, man, I'm just being me, and I genuinely want to facilitate the vibe of just conversation.
Yeah.
So, and my goal at the end of these podcasts is whoever I'm interviewing, they just become a friend. And so that's been one of the best parts of this so far on this little journey. And it's grown a lot more than I thought it would. I didn't have a lot of expectations, and it's just been incredible to see the response of people on the content. Like one of the clips, it was cool because I got to know Vince Gill. We've gone to breakfast a good amount of times, and I've been to his house. We've written music together, and I got a text message from this country artist, Craig Campbell. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, I do.
But he texted me right before this, and he was like, hey, man, can you send me that clip of Vince talking about, I forget which part it was, but it was like a part of that really impacted Craig Campbell. And it's interesting when it's like, here I am, like taking a step back from like really pursuing the music thing hard, but talking with people. And then some people like Craig that were, when I was really listening to country radio, and Eric Church was on and Craig Campbell was on, and man, these were like my, as when you were like a younger kid and I was driving over to your house to date your sister and my 94 Jeep Wrangler that didn't have air conditioning with the top off in California during the summer, and it was 110 degrees, and just blasting the radio, and Craig Morgan's on or whatever. And then now it's like full circle. He's coming to me saying like, hey, can you send me that? Because that impacted me.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, dude, just these full circle moments that are kind of gnarly and just crazy. And it's like, wow. And I was talking to you last night when I got that text message from one of the high women.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I always didn't want to say highway.
Highway?
Yeah, highway women.
High
women.
That's harder to say. No, yeah.
But when she's going to be on the podcast, and it's just like, man, like stuff like this is just like crazy.
Yeah,
but
it just starts to go together.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. And like God's just opening doors, man. And that's the cool thing behind all this is I feel like it is like all this stuff in my life has happened, and it's all culminated in this podcast.
Yeah, very unsuspecting, but it's like it's a perfect analogy of kind of your advice to the people that want to make big moves like that, which is like be open-minded, be willing to pivot, be willing to transition, like be flexible. Don't get so fixed, because then when that one thing doesn't work, you crash and burn. It's like to think about how many pivots you've had and you've been forced to make each thing work. Like the act of those activities has well-rounded you to do even something like this. Yeah. And who knows what this will turn into, but so far it's great and things are falling into place. And it's a combination of, God ordained timing and him giving you the blessings and gifts and provision that he has, matched with your reps and your ambition and your drive and your willingness, to achieve something. Like when you put those two things together, you can't be stopped.
Yeah, come on.
That's it.
You're firing me up.
That's it.
I'm gritty.
You are gritty. Have you read that book, Grit?
No.
By Angela Duckworth, I think is her name.
No.
Recommend it. Shameless plug. Recommend it.
What book are you reading right now?
I'm reading the book of Mark in the Bible, and I'm reading Discipline Equals Freedom by Jocko Willink.
Let me show you what I'm listening to, because I don't do the reading so well because of the dyslexia.
Yeah, no. I mean, I prefer not to read
Do you do Audible?
I use yours a little bit.
Oh yeah, you're on our account.
You weren't.
No, I know that because you bought a book
that.
on our account. Haley told me.
Yeah, I asked for permission every time though.
No,
I would never use
buy
your
away,
credits.
listen away.
I would never use your credits without.
We got
permission.
2 credits right now, but for me, I'm
Don't
listening.
tell me that. I'm about to get in there.
I'm listening.
I got a few that I want.
The 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication by John Maxwell.
Whoa, dude.
This is one of the best books I've read in a long time, and I would highly recommend it to anybody. And it's interesting because podcasting is communication.
Yes.
You know? So that's a great one. But that's kind of what I'm into. And then I'm listening to Mind Magic by James R. Doty, MD. James Doty.
Mind Magic?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting because he talks about, like, essentially you can think about things in the things that you want and feel the feelings of what it would feel like to have the life that you want. Just like when you watch a scary movie and you feel scared, your body doesn't know the difference between
like, it doesn't know that it's not real.
Your mind can say, oh, this was filmed in Hollywood on a set, but your body is saying, oh, my sympathetic nervous system kicked in because I'm having adrenaline, my heart, you know, like your body's reacting as if there was a threat. Well, you can take that same approach by feeding your soul and your brain with visuals of what your perfect life would look like or what you want to feel in the future.
Yeah.
And then you start to program your body to feel a certain way. And there's a big mind-body connection. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
I think I have heard of it. I haven't read it though.
But yeah, man, human beings, like, our bodies are really powerful, and it's a very interesting book that talks a lot about that, and it gets into the science and how our thoughts shape everything. Yeah, you know. So yeah. I'm into that. So it's like there's a like self-help one, and then there's like a science one. And that's kind of what I'm into.
Have you read? I love that, and I'm super fascinated by the sciencey level because that's like less of what I've explored.
Have you listened to Andrew Huberman?
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of his.
He's up there, man. He's like, sometimes it's hard to follow. He uses big words and stuff. Yeah, but it's like I'll catch on. Yeah. But it's all reps. So I listen to it enough, I'll figure it out. Yeah, bro. I'll get my dictionary at my 1849 dictionary. Have you read Magic of Thinking Big?
Oh, of course.
Oh, okay. Just making
sure. That was one of the first, after Think and Grow Rich, that was the second book I read.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many
And my favorite
ones,
thing from that book is excusitis.
Yes.
That chapter on making excuses.
Oh my gosh, dude. There's so many. It's a gold mine. I mean, so many of these old timer books are gold mines. Like, people just need to read these.
Thank you for doing this, man.
It's my pleasure. It's my joy.